What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So yesterday there was some polling put out in Michigan. So the Michigan Senate race, we're going to take a look at that. We're also going to listen to one of the candidates. He's going to be talking about his plan for Michigan voters. And I also want to focus on this poll because this poll is showing him, this is El-Sayed that we're talking about, showing him as the front runner now. So we'll take a look at that. And then we'll end the video taking a look at the Senate map. So we're going to do all that in this video. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at the latest polls. So this is the Mitchell Research poll. This was conducted or actually posted on 6/16/2026. 409 likely voters. The margin of error there is plus or minus 4.9%. So you have a very small sample size. It's likely voters. That's good. And that margin of error is way too high at 4.9%. However, these are the results. You have 42% for El-Sayed, you have 33% for Stevens, and then you have 6% for McMorrow's, and then 19% for other. Now, what's interesting here is if we look at McMorrow, and we'll take a look at, I'll do a separate video. She was interviewed as well on MS Now. But looking at this, you have her at 6%, her right below that 13%, 17%, 16%. So she's low here compared to some, compared to Stevens at 33%, 35%. Stevens here was at 18%. She was a little bit lower there, and then 25%. So you see her compared as far as being, you have El-Sayed that's doing very well in the polling, 42% here, 31% there. Stevens was at 35%. They don't have a margin of error here, so I'm going to assume this is within that margin of error. And then you have El-Sayed leading here. So, I mean, if you're looking at this, it's almost back and forth with the polling coming out for Stevens or El-Sayed. The last poll that McMorrow's was tied with El-Sayed was here, and that was back in April. So I just want to kind of show you just a pattern that we're looking at right now when it comes to the polling. And you definitely see McMorrow's numbers starting to shrink. And so what does that mean? We don't know. McMorrow's could decide in the next couple of months that she wants to drop out of the race before the primary. Remember, the primary is in August, so they have a little bit of time. But I just wanted to mention that when it comes to McMorrow's, her numbers are really shifting. And when we see the polls, so they average the two polls here, you see El-Sayed at 36.5%. You see Stevens at 34%, and then you see McMorrow at 9.5%. Now I want to show the comparison between El-Sayed and Rogers. So Rogers will be the Republican nominee, and so if the Democratic nominee is El-Sayed, we're looking at this Zenith Research. This is the latest poll. This was posted on 6/17/2026. 602 likely voters. Margin of error there is plus or minus 4%. And so you have El-Sayed at 45%, Rogers at 42%, other at 13%. So this does fall within that margin of error. So there's no clear leader, but El-Sayed does have the lead in that poll. And then when we look at the TIPP poll, this was posted on 6/1/2026, 1,154 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 3%. So this is a pretty good sample size. You have likely voters, and you have that margin of error at 3% or less, so that's good. You have El-Sayed at 43%, you have Rogers at 42%, and you have other at 15%. And so you see El-Sayed, the last two polls, El-Sayed is leading over Rogers. And just for comparison, if we were to look at McMorrow, she is at, with the Zenith Research, 6/17/2026, 602 likely voters, plus or minus margin of error is 4%. McMorrow's at 44%, Rogers is at 42%. If we move down to the TIPP poll with the same date and same sample size, you have McMorrow at 45%, and you have Rogers at 42%, and then 13% other. We take a look at Stevens, same poll, same date, same sample size. You have Stevens at 43%, you have Rogers at 42%. Then we look at the TIPP poll, same date, same sample size. Look at this. You have Stevens at 48%, you have Rogers at 41%, and then you have other at 11%. So Stevens is doing much better in this TIPP poll. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what's going on. Now, when we look at Kalshi, the prediction market, what the prediction market is showing us, it's showing us that Democrats have right now the probability 70% chance of winning over the Republican Party. So the Democrats do have an advantage when we're looking at the prediction market. And so now what I want to do is I want to show you a clip of El-Sayed. He's going to be talking about his plan moving forward. Here we go.
And you will hear from both of them in a few moments. Joining me now is Abdul El-Sayed. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Ali.
All right. So, I'm looking at the numbers. We've got the state as a toss-up. It's tight. Michigan is a tight race. Every time there's an election there. Why do you believe that you're the best chance to keep this in Democratic hands?
So Michigan hasn't had a Republican senator since 1994. And right now we're running against a guy named Mike Rogers. So when I'm the nominee, I'm going to tell you his biggest weakness is the fact that he took 60 votes to raise prescription drug prices, then helped to architect the opioid epidemic, then took a $14 million payout from the pharma industry to become a lobbyist and moved to Florida. This is a guy who could not get the endorsement of Donald Trump until he begged for it at Mar-a-Lago. So he's not well liked by his own party, and he's certainly not liked by the state because he hasn't lived here for a very long time. I'm a guy who rebuilt the health department, led the rebuilding to do things like put glasses on kids, eliminate medical debt, put Narcan in 100 different locations. Who better to prosecute the case against him than me? The other thing I'll tell you is that I've just been clear about what I'm running on. I want to get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all. These are things that are broadly popular across my state because they're the right thing to do.
So there are people who argue that these are broadly popular, particularly in a primary. General election voters are a little bit different. There are some who've argued you're too far over to the left, and there are some who argue that you're calling Israel's actions in Gaza genocide, puts you outside of the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
Well, I'll tell you this. Everywhere I go, I've been to over 100 different cities, more than 400 public events. I've never met somebody who's like, hey, listen, I just want more money in politics, less money in my pocket, and Medicare for none. The truth of this is that they're actually really quite popular. The problem with it is that too often both Democrats and Republicans, we have these bipartisan consensus around issues that are critical to people's lives because both parties tend to take money from the same corporations that want to rig the system against us. There is nobody that I've met. I've talked to folks who voted for Donald Trump 3 times who come up to me and say, I'm supporting you. And the reason why is they say, you're actually America first. You actually want to make sure that I have health care. You don't take money from the corporations that buy off either side of the aisle. So I actually think these are broadly popular. The problem is that we don't test this hypothesis because you get too many people who want to maintain that consensus who tell you that if you actually run against that consensus, then you can't possibly win. Well, we're going to test that hypothesis in the fall, and I think we're going to show that you can win by big numbers, like especially against a guy like Mike Rogers.
So, I love Michigan. I'm there as much as I can.
Well, you're from Canada.
You're from Canada, right? It's
basically from Michigan.
We're basically from Michigan. And one of the things I love about Michigan is that everybody in Michigan understands every issue we're dealing with today, whether it's trade or manufacturing, whatever. It all roads go through Michigan, which means these people are convincible voters by your Republican opponent if you get the nomination, or you. What's the argument? Is it mostly economics?
I think it's mostly economics, but it's also the narrative we tell about why the economics have become so frustrating for people. I think you just look at the history of Michigan. It went for Bernie, then it went for Trump. That's 2016. Then it went for Biden, and then it went for Trump. It's either that Michiganders are schizophrenic, but you've been to Michigan. You know Michiganders are pretty steady Eddie type of folks. Yeah. Or it's that they go to the buffet and they don't find what they want. And so my point is this: stop trying to pretend like there's something in the middle. Stop trying to apply this frame that always proves wrong. What people want are politicians who are going to work for them, that remind them that actually things can be better and explain to them why they're not. When both sides of the aisle are bought off by the same corporations or special interests, so that there's a bipartisan consensus on every issue from Israel to trade to healthcare, what are you actually getting? And so it's important, I think, to be challenging that consensus. I'm a Democrat. I love my party. I just want my party to be better.
Are you okay with it being a big tent? In other words, can you manage the fact that not everybody will share, whether your view is on Israel or on Medicare for all? Can the Democratic Party be that party for people like you and people in the party who you don't agree with?
I think it has to be, but here's the bigger question. The question is, do you align the tent by putting everybody on the outside of it and going to pander to every side? Or do you bring everybody in the tent to the middle about the things that unite us all? I don't care who you are, how you pray, if you pray, who you love, how you identify. You need housing. You need health care. You need a job that's going to be there for you tomorrow. You need to know that AI isn't coming for everything in your existence. These are things we all can agree on. But here's the problem. When the corporations who are taking away your health care, who are making housing unattainable, who are bringing you AI, buy off both sides of the party, then the question becomes, what are you even campaigning on? So I don't take that money. It is critical to me. Money out of politics is the first
How do you do that? How do you do that? Because there's so much money in politics. How do you decide you're going to be the one who's not taking it?
You run a campaign by reaching out to every day.
But you got to pay for stuff.
You do.
You got to take ads.
And it turns out that when you tell folks you're not bought off by the corporations, 100,000 plus people decide that they want to give you $5, $10 at a time. Our average contribution is under $50. We've got people from all walks of life, all 50 states, all over the state who've given to this campaign. Now, look, I'm getting vastly outspent by AIPAC, who's already dropped $18 million for one of my opponents. But at the end of the day, I'd take a message over their money any day, because if you got to be corrupted to be the mouthpiece for an organization that tells us that the most important aspect of our foreign policy is to backstop a foreign government or go fight wars that we have no business fighting, I think at some point Michiganders are going to look at you and be like, nope, not that one.
Your primary is in August. It's a little late. Gets a bit hot at times. What happens if you don't win? Will you support your ticket?
We've got to beat Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is going to be nothing but an errand boy for Donald Trump. This is a guy who hasn't thought an original thought since probably 1989 or so. And I think we have an opportunity to beat him. Any of us could beat him. But I make the better case in every poll after poll, that I could beat him. Now, it's interesting to me because the establishment of my party seems to oppose me because they say I'm unelectable. Here's the funny thing. The polls suggest otherwise. I think their issue is not that they're afraid I would lose. I think their issue is that they're afraid I would win. And look, I'm coming to change our politics, nothing less. We cannot continue to tell working people that we're on their side if we're taking money from the corporations who are making their lives that much more difficult.
Abdul, thanks for taking time to be with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Abdul El-Sayed is the Democrat.
Okay, so that was El-Sayed. So what do you guys think? You guys can let me know in the comments below. One thing that he talked about, Medicare for All, I would be interested to know a little bit more about his plan as far as financial plan, because you hear a lot of politicians out there saying, yes, we need Medicare for all and we need this and we need that. But then when you start looking at, okay, how is this possible? How are you going to do this? Then it becomes unrealistic. So I do want to hear what he's talking about when it comes to Medicare for all, as well as when we're talking about Medicare, we're talking about Social Security, we're talking about programs like that. What we need to understand is the politicians, the senators especially, because they have 6-year terms, the senators that we elect in November, these senators are going to be a part of the Congress people that have to decide what's going to happen with Social Security, what's going to happen with Medicare, and especially Social Security, because we're at a point where we're reaching that deadline of 2032, and 2032 for the first trust fund to run out of money, and then the second trust fund, if you combine them, we're looking at 2034. And so these politicians, these senators that we are electing, they're going to have to play a role in that. They're going to, because ultimately, Congress is going to need to act to reform Social Security in order to extend it out so people won't see an automatic cut to their Social Security benefits in 2032 or 2034. And so it's very important to know what these politicians, these senators, want to do with Social Security. And with El-Sayed, it sounds like he wants to expand Medicare, and it sounds like for Social Security, he probably wants to reform it, but not make cuts to the program. And so that's something also that's worth mentioning. Okay, let's take a look at the Senate map. And so when we look at the Senate map, the reason why Michigan is so very important is because Democrats need to defend Michigan. There's 3 states, in my opinion, 3 states that Democrats need to defend in November. It's going to be Georgia, Michigan, and New Hampshire. They need to defend these 3 seats, and then they need to pick up 4 more seats. Okay, so that's why Michigan is very important, because if we start looking at some of the numbers here, and let's say Democrats are able to defend Georgia, let's say they're able to defend New Hampshire, and if we look at a scenario here, let's say Democrats don't win in Michigan, let's say they lose Michigan. And so now what Democrats need to do in order to take back control of the Senate is they need to defend Georgia, they need to defend New Hampshire, they need to win in North Carolina, they need to win in Maine, they need to win in Alaska, they need to win in Texas, and then guess what? They need to win one more state, because 50-50, the vice president comes in and breaks the tie, and so Republicans would still maintain control of the Senate. And so Democrats would need to win in a state like Ohio or win in a state like Iowa. And so let's just say Democrats win in Ohio. Now Democrats and independents are at 51, and they take back control of the Senate. But they have to win all of those states in order to make that happen. Whereas if we're looking at a scenario where Democrats are able to defend Michigan, now they have a little bit of a cushion. And so if one of these states that they want to win doesn't go their way, let's say Texas doesn't go their way, they still have that 51. Because if they can win North Carolina, which is very likely, if they can win Maine, it looks like they have an opportunity to win in Maine. If they can win in Ohio, it looks like they have a good opportunity to win in Ohio as well. And then Alaska, it looks like they have a good opportunity. This is a pathway that's realistic. And it still leaves Texas open. It still leaves Iowa open. And they have an opportunity to win in both of those states as well. And so Michigan is the key. If they can defend Michigan, that will help them along the way to take back control of the Senate. Now I'm going to hand it off to you. What do you guys think we're going to see? What do you think we're going to see in Michigan? Do you think it will be El-Sayed? Do you think it'll be Stevens? Do you think it'll be McMorrow's? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.